especially when we're in a calorie deficit, like for weight loss. We want to spend as much time as possible in protein synthesis. That way we're making sure that we're retaining as much muscle as possible, even though overall we're losing weight. Welcome, my name is Trevor Lomax. I'm a registered dietitian who specializes in sports performance as well as weight management. Welcome back to the weight loss series, episode 4, where we're talking about how when you eat your meals and fuel for exercise can improve muscle retention while you're losing weight. Before we get started, if you have questions at any point in the video, please put them below in the comment section and I will get back to you as soon as I can. Also, click that like button for the YouTube algorithm and subscribe so you never miss the next video. So what is nutrient timing? Nutrient timing is how you space your meals throughout the day and when you eat before and after exercise to improve your performance as well as recovery. So why is the timing of your meals so important throughout the day? Well, it really all boils down to protein synthesis. Protein synthesis works like spikes and valleys. Eating is a stimulus for your body to go into an anabolic mode. This means a building up. So the body is building up muscle or other proteins that may have been degraded or are currently being turned over or for some reason. If we haven't eaten for a long time or we're fasting or we're hopefully sleeping 8 hours, our body goes into protein degradation or breakdown, right? Our body is utilizing those proteins for something else, or it may just be turning them over. Especially when we're in a calorie deficit, like for weight loss, we want to spend as much time as possible in protein synthesis. That way we're making sure that we're retaining as much muscle as possible, even though overall we're losing weight. Now, if you remember from the second episode of this series, you will still lose lean muscle mass as you lose weight, but our goal is to maintain as much as possible. So the spacing out of those meals is what's really going to help us maintain as much muscle, along with the macronutrient distribution we talked about in episode 2. So how do we focus on spacing our meals appropriately? Well, the easy way to think about this is eating a high protein meal every 3 to 4 hours. And honestly, if you get that piece down, it's gonna help you more than the rest of the stuff in this video, but let's put the cherry on top and go further into pre-workout and post-workout nutrition. So first, pre-workout nutrition. Why is this so important? Well, carbohydrates, like we talked about in episode 2, give us energy, specifically that high intensity explosive energy that we want to have really high intensity and really high quality workouts. If we want to boil this down to a really quick and easy recommendation, it's going to be have 30 to 60 grams of carbohydrates 30 to 45 minutes before your exercise begins getting intense. So if you have a really slow, long warm-up, then maybe you can count this time. If your warm-up involves maybe walking on a treadmill or a Stairmaster to warm up, I would not count that time. Now, it's important to note you can have a mixed macronutrient meal, meaning something that has protein, fat, and carbohydrates, but you gotta have this meal a lot farther out, maybe an hour to 2 hours before you actually start exercising. The risk of having a mixed macronutrient meal is the lowered digestibility of the meal. Having a high fiber or high fat meal before you work out slows that digestibility down, so you may not feel super great going into really intense exercise with all of that in your stomach and your intestines. Typically, when we're looking at just a carbohydrate dose before we work out, we want to keep it below 5 grams of fat and fiber. Now, if you go a little bit above that, that's okay, and it's really gonna depend person to person. We also don't wanna be having a ton of protein before exercise. So a good rule of thumb is having about less than 10 grams. That way it's not sitting so heavy in your gastrointestinal system while you're exercising. Now, some of you may be thinking, well, Trevor, I don't eat before I work out because I usually feel really bad, maybe like I'm even going to throw up. Well, that could happen for 2 reasons. Either number 1, you're not eating the right things. And if that's the case, go back and listen to that section just so you're really sure about what to have. The second piece of that is that your gut functions more like a muscle in that you gotta train it for it to act how you want it to. You're not just gonna go in the gym and start deadlifting 300 pounds right off the bat. Maybe you have to start at 100 pounds, then you go to 120, 140, 160, and you work your way up to that really heavy deadlift. Well, your gut is the same way. You're not gonna just go and have 30 to 60 grams of carbs right before you exercise and feel great. you got to start real small and work your way up. So maybe this means something as small as a quarter of a banana or a half a banana. And then over time, maybe over a week or 2 or 3, you start to build it up until you can get to that full recommendation. The most important thing about pre-workout nutrition is finding what works for you. So don't be afraid to try new things and find a new pre-workout snack that works for you. Now let's continue on to post-workout nutrition. And yes, we're gonna go beyond just having a protein shake because there's so much more to it than just that. Now, first, let's talk about timing real quick. Your post-workout meal should really depend more on when you had your last high protein feeding or high protein meal. Typically based on how long it takes you to get ready for the gym, go to the gym, get back from the gym. This will probably end up being in that range that we talked about at the beginning, about 3 to 4 hours from that last high protein meal. If you're working out first thing in the morning, then I would recommend having this as soon as you stop your exercise, just so you can really start your body moving into that anabolic phase. And just to reiterate, if you had a meal before you exercised, maybe an hour or so, if you have your meal within that 3 to 4 hour window, you're in a good time frame. The anabolic window is not as small as once was thought, so you don't have 30 minutes or an hour. You have a little bit more time there. And honestly, stressing about it is probably worse than feeling like you need to get it in immediately. Yeah, get it in, but don't worry about it being the second you finish your workout. Now, for recovery, I think a lot of us know that we want protein, right? Protein is there to rebuild the muscles that we've just broken down through our exercise. But one component that so many people miss out on that is so critical are the carbohydrates. We want carbohydrates because during an exercise, not only have we broke down our muscles, we've also used up that high intensity, explosive energy source, carbohydrates, that are stored in our liver and our muscles. So our body wants to preferentially refill those. If we don't get those carbohydrates in, it's gonna utilize the protein to preferentially restore those energy stores. Now, the reason for this makes a little bit more sense if we think about cavemen and cave women. Back then, if you were fighting a saber-toothed tiger to defend for your life, then you ate some food, your body would want to preferentially store energy again. So if another saber-toothed tiger attacked you, you would be able to defend against it. Rebuilding muscle there is not as important. So when we shift to today's time, our body still thinks that way. It wants to restore the energy so that we can be ready for the next attack to save our life or whatever. Secondarily, it's going to utilize that protein to repair other proteins such as that muscle. An easy way to think about this is having carbohydrates to protein in a ratio of either 2 to 1 or 3 to 1, depending on the intensity of that activity. For reference, somewhere between 25 and 40 grams or maybe even higher is probably what you want to aim for in your post-workout recovery. The amount of protein is more so dependent on body size and how you need to meet your entire needs throughout the day than it is just this arbitrary number. So the best way to look at it is splitting up your total daily protein needs by the amount of meals and snacks you're gonna have, and then honestly, just put one meal right behind where you're exercising. Those mixed macronutrient meals after you exercise are just as good, and unless you're maybe one of the top 1% of pro bodybuilders in the world, it's not that big of a deal. If you're watching this video, a mixed macronutrient meal, just meaning what most people call a meal, is perfectly fine. You'll also be getting in a ton of fiber, vitamins, minerals, all those extra nutrients that are gonna go towards your daily goals as well. Remember, as we get deeper into this weight loss series, the things that we talked about in episode 1 are gonna be the most important. Episode 2, the second most important. And honestly, between those 2 episodes is gonna be the bulk of where your results will come from. Episode 3 and episode 4 are also super important, but they're gonna do less in terms of moving the needle. Next episode, we're gonna talk about maybe that 1 extra percent, and if you're doing all the things right we've talked about, you might get a little bit out of the next video. And one of the most important things about a weight loss journey is the support that you get from those around you who may also be on the same journey or have an expertise in the area. That's why I've created the Discord channel. The link is in the bio below. please join so that you can surround yourself with the people who are going to help you achieve your goals. You'll also get more access to me, which never hurts when you need to ask a question. If you found this video helpful, please share it with a friend or a family member who may be on a similar journey or may just be interested in nutrition as well. The next episode of this series will be a bonus video where we discuss supplements that, if you're doing all the things right from this episode and the 3 before it, then this may give you a little extra boost in your weight loss journey. So stay tuned.